The potatoes sizzle in the pan, filling my small kitchen with the smell of sunflower oil and fresh dill. I stir them with a wooden spatula, trying not to succumb to my fatigue. Dinner for one is simple but boring. I rarely cooked before. Gloria wouldn't let me near the stove, saying that my job was to turn the sheep, not the pots. Now I'm in my fifth year as my own cook, 72 years old and still on my feet. I wipe my hands with a kitchen towel and look out the window. Behind the glass, gray five-story buildings, bare trees, frowning November sky. Lebanon, a small town where everyone knows each other, but that doesn't mean anything. The loneliness here is the same as in the big city. I carefully transfer the fried potatoes to a plate, add scrambled eggs from 2 eggs, and settle myself at the small table by the window. The TV is muttering softly in the living room. Some cooking show. I never really listen, just turn it on so it's not so quiet. My apartment is small, kitchen, living room, bedroom, and bathroom. Khrushchevka as my neighbor in the stairwell. Mrs. Swaling calls it. She was born in Russia, but has lived here for 30 years. Sometimes we exchange a few words when we meet at the mailboxes. I don't really have much more socializing to do. It's strange that life has turned out this way. I used to have my own house, a big 3-bedroom house with a garden in the backyard. 30 years saving for it, first with my Loria, then alone. 30 years driving a truck. The bones ached from the long hours in one position, and now rheumatism reminded me of itself on rainy days. But Loria and I dreamed that we'd grow old in our own house, overlooking the apple trees we'd planted ourselves. I chew slowly, remembering how things changed 10 years ago. Adelaide divorced her husband, left alone with a mortgage she couldn't afford. Keanu and his wife and 2 small children were living in a rented apartment, always short of money. And then Loria and I decided to give our house to the children and ourselves to move to a smaller apartment. Anyway, the 2 of us do not need so much space, and the children will be good to live together, to help each other. How wrong we were. After we moved in, Loria started getting sick. First colds, then her heart. Then it turned out she had cancer, and it was too late for treatment. 5 years ago, she passed away, and I was left all alone. The children sometimes call me for Sunday lunches out of a sense of duty, nothing more. Adelaide was always cold, but since her mother's death, she's been even more distant. And Keanu, I sigh as I finish the last bite. Keanu is kinder, but irresponsible. At 42, he still dreams of becoming a famous artist, even though no one buys his paintings. He works from order to order, decorates signs for local stores, draws portraits to order. This brings little money, and most of the family budget earns his wife Edith, who works as a receptionist in a local hotel. I still pay the mortgage on the house. I collect the dirty dishes and mechanically wash them, looking out the dark window in which reflected only myself. A hunched old man with deep wrinkles on his face and gray hair, still thick but no longer dark, as in his youth. Tomorrow is Sunday. I'll go to the kids' house for lunch again. They wait for me every Sunday, because I bring money. I wipe my hands carefully and go into the living room. I sit down in an old chair, shabby but comfortable. Loria loved that chair. How many evenings we spent like this, she knitting, me reading the paper. Now it's just me and the softly muttering television. There are pictures on the mantelpiece. There's Loria and me, young, just married. Adelaide, a serious girl with a tight braid and a determined look. Here's Keanu, a wiggly boy with dreamy eyes. There are the grandchildren, Millie, Keanu's daughter, now 12, and Johnny, her brother, 8. And then there's Thomas, Adelaide's son, a sullen teenager of 15. I reach for the photo album on the coffee table. I flip through the pages, the children's weddings, the birth of grandchildren, family picnics when Loria was still alive and well. Everything seemed so right then. We were saving for a house so we could leave something for the kids, a place for the whole family to gather, a place to come back to. My eyes fall on the clock, 8 p.m. Time to take my meds. I walk into the kitchen, pull out a plastic container of pills, packed by day of the week, blood pressure, heart medication, vitamins, the whole bunch. I take some water and go back to my chair. Tomorrow I need to buy something for my grandchildren's tea. They love chocolate chip cookies. The morning is gray but dry. I stand at the bus stop holding a bag of cookies for my grandchildren and an envelope of money. $500, $400 for the mortgage, $100 for the kids' expenses. My meager truck driver's pension barely covers my own needs, but I'm used to saving money. The main thing is to make sure the grandchildren don't need anything. The bus arrives a little late. I slowly climb the steps, nod to the driver, and settle into the window seat. 40 minutes to the other side of town, where my former home stands. I look at the passing streets, at the passers-by hurrying about their business, and I think about the fact that I'm in no hurry myself. Time flows differently when you are over 70. The house greets me with clean windows and a neatly trimmed lawn, the only thing Keanu does regularly and with pleasure. I walk up to the porch and ring the bell, even though I have a key. Loria always said to ring the bell, even if you can get in on your own. It's a sign of respect. Adelaide opens the door. She's tall, slender, with dark hair and a bun. 45 years old, but she looks 35. She's always looked after herself. "Daddy," she says in a tone that is neither warm nor happy. "You're early." "The bus came early," I lie. The bus was on time, but I had calculated the time with a reserve. I'm always afraid of being late. "Shishana, come in. Edith's still cooking dinner." I went into the hallway, wiped my feet carefully on the mat, and hung my jacket on the hook, the same hook I'd screwed in 20 years ago. I take off my shoes and walk into the living room. "Grandpa." There was a cheer, and Millie, a blonde-haired girl with freckles on her nose, came running toward me. "My good girl," I said, smiling and handing her a bag of cookies. "These are for you and your brother." "Thank you." She grabs the bag and runs into the kitchen, yelling, "Johnny, Grandpa brought cookies." Edith, Keanu's wife, a petite woman with tired eyes, peeks out of the kitchen. "Hello, Harlan. Dinner will be ready in half an hour." "Sakunalinurum." "Take your time. I'll wait." I sit down on the sofa, looking around the room. Everything is painfully familiar. The couch that Loria and I bought 20 years ago. The coffee table that Keanu left a scratch on with his typewriter. The painting on the wall. One of my son's first paintings of the local lake at sunset. Even the curtains are the same. Loria sewed them herself. But the atmosphere is different. The house used to be filled with laughter, conversation, the smells of home baking. Now it's tense. "Where's Thomas?" I ask, not seeing my eldest grandson. "At a friend's." Adelaide cuts in, walking through the living room with a clipboard in hand. "Finishing a biology project." "On Sunday?" I wonder. "He has exams coming up." Adelaide doesn't even look at me. "Keanu, Daddy's here." Keanu appears from his studio, converted from my and Loria's former bedroom. He's tall, thin, with disheveled hair and a paint-stained t-shirt. "Hi, Dad," he smiles, but his eyes remain wary. "How was your trip?" "Fine." I clap on the seat next to me. "Sit down, tell me how you're doing. What are you working on?" Keanu sits down, rubbing his hands together nervously. "I got a commission for a portrait for the mayor. It's paying well." "That's great. I'm genuinely happy for him." Maybe this is the beginning of a confession. Well, it's just a portrait for his office," Keanu shrugs. "It's nothing special." "Listen, Dad, I need new brushes and paints. Special ones for formal portraits." "That's it." I'm holding my breath. "How much?" $200. "I'll pay you back when I get paid for the portrait." I nod. We both know he won't. He never has. Edith's voice comes from the kitchen. "Dinner's ready. Millie, get your brother." Everyone gathers around the table. I sit in my usual place, opposite the empty chair where Loria used to sit. Edith is putting the roast on a plate. "How was work, Adelaide?" I ask, trying to make conversation. "The usual." She types something quickly into her phone, not even looking up. "Lots of reports, end of the quarter." "You still thinking about that promotion?" "Yeah, but the boss has been promising it for a year." She finally pulls away from the phone. "Maybe something will come up at Christmas." "And you, Edith, how's the hotel?" "Not many tourists. It's the off-season." She smiles weakly. "But we're managing." "Grandpa, did you know I won the drawing contest at school?" Millie intervenes. "Did you?" My face breaks into a smile. "Tell me." "I drew a picture of our family at the picnic, and the teacher said that." "Millie, don't interrupt grown-ups." Adelaide interrupts her. "Son, and don't talk with your mouth full." The girl is embarrassed and shuts up. I frown. She didn't interrupt. I want to hear about the contest. Dad, don't interfere, please. Adelaide puts the phone away. Everyone has their own way of parenting. I'm sorry, I'm getting discouraged. I'm doing it all wrong again. Lunch continues in awkward silence, punctuated only by the clatter of forks against plates and occasional remarks about the weather and the week ahead. When the meal is over, I take out the envelope and place it on the table. Here's the usual. Adelaide takes the envelope without saying thank you and tucks it into her bag. Keanu looks questioningly. Dad, about the paints. Take it from this money. Adelaide waves her hand. This month we have a small stockpile. After dinner I help Edith clear the table, though she says she can do it herself. I want to be useful, to feel that I'm still needed. Keanu goes back to the studio and I go into the living room, hoping to play with the grandchildren. Johnny is sitting on the floor putting together a construction set. I sink down beside him, fighting the pain in my knees. What are you building, buddy? A spaceship, the boy smiles, showing me the half-assembled structure. Want to help? Sure. I take the parts and start attaching them according to the instructions. We sit on the floor, building the spaceship, and for a few minutes I feel happy. My grandson is the only person in this house who is genuinely happy to see me. We are finishing the model when Adelaide enters the room. Johnny, go do your homework. You have a math test tomorrow. But Mom, Grandpa and I... No buts. Go. Johnny sighs but obediently stands up. Sorry, Grandpa. We'll do it next time, okay? Sure, buddy. I get up too, wincing at the pain in my back. Adelaide gives her son a look, then turns to me. Dad, Keanu and I have discussed it. We need another $200 this month. Johnny's birthday is coming up, and we also need to fix the washing machine. I nod silently. What else can I do? I'll bring it next week. Thank you, she says the word like she's doing me a favor. I'm going to go to work. My report isn't finished. She walks away, leaving me alone in the living room. I stare at the unfinished spaceship and feel just as unfinished. Unnecessary. Millie walks across the room with a book in her hands. Grandpa, do you want to see my drawing? The one that won the contest? Sure, sweetie. She runs off and comes back with a piece of paper showing our family on a picnic by the lake. Everyone is smiling, holding hands. I'm standing next to Loria, even though their grandmother has been gone for 5 years. In this drawing is the perfect family as it should have been, but wasn't. It's beautiful, I say, swallowing a lump in my throat. And it's all of us together. I even drew my grandmother, even though she's gone. Millie sighs. I don't remember her much, but my mom says she was kind. Very kind, I say, and very pretty like you. Millie smiles, and at that moment Adelaide comes out of her room. Millie, I told you not to bother Grandpa. She's not bothering you, I object. We're just... Daddy, Adelaide interrupts me in that tone one uses with a naughty child. Millie needs to study for her history test. Go, Millie. The girl obediently takes the drawing and leaves. Adelaide gives her a look and turns to me. You shouldn't spoil the children, Papa. They need to learn. A little attention from Grandpa wouldn't hurt anyone, I say, but I don't have any confidence in my voice. I know what's best for them. She cuts me off. You don't see them often enough to judge. It hurts, but I keep quiet. What can I say? That I'd like to see them more often, but they don't call me? That I feel like a stranger in my own family? By the way, Adelaide continues, we've decided with Keanu that we're going to renovate the bathroom. We're going to need some extra money. That's it. I can see why I was invited today, not just to give money, but to ask for more. How much? 1,000. She says it like she's asking for a nickel for gum. We'll pay you back later. I know they won't. Never have. Okay, I nod. I'll see what I can do. Time drags on slowly. I sit in the living room, trying to read an old magazine, but the letters blur in front of my eyes. An hour later, Keanu comes out of the studio with paints on his hands. Dad, I think this portrait could be a breakthrough. The mayor knows a lot of powerful people. I hope so, son. He takes a seat next to me. How are you feeling? Is your back bothering you? I've been better, I shrug. You know Johnny looks forward to seeing you every Sunday. He keeps asking if Grandpa's coming. It makes me feel good. At least someone's happy to see me. I miss him too, all of you. Keanu smiles awkwardly. You know, Maybe you should move in with us. There's plenty of room. You'd see your grandkids every day. I look at him questioningly. It's not the first time he's suggested it, but I know Adelaide is against it. And will I be comfortable here where I feel like an outsider? I don't think that's a good idea, I say. You're crowded enough as it is. As you wish, Keanu gives up quickly, as if relieved by my refusal. But the offer stands. We both know it's insincere. He's offering out of politeness, nothing more. By 4 o'clock, I start packing for home. The bus rarely runs on Sundays, and if I miss the 4:30, I'll have to wait until 6. Are you leaving already? Edith asks, peering out of the kitchen. Yes, the bus will be here soon. I can drive you, Keanu offers. I need to go to the art supply store anyway. No need, I shake my head. I'm used to the bus. The truth is, I'm embarrassed to ask for things like this. I don't want to be a burden. I say goodbye to my grandchildren, hugging each one. Adelaide comes out of her room when I'm already in the hallway. See you next Sunday, Daddy, she says, not coming up for a hug. Don't forget about the bathroom remodel. Of course, I nod. I'll see you then. I go outside. The November air chills me to the bone, but I don't rush to put on my gloves. I like that feeling. It reminds me that I'm still alive. I walk to the bus stop, looking back at the house. My house that isn't mine anymore. The bus is almost empty. I sit at the window and look out at the streets floating by. The city is sinking into the early fall twilight. The streetlights are already on, illuminating the road with yellow light. People are hurrying home, where their families' warmth and comfort await them, and an empty apartment awaits me. I close my eyes, leaning my forehead against the cold glass. I remember how Loria used to greet me after long flights, with a smile, with a hot dinner, with joy in her eyes. How children, still small, ran towards me shouting, "Daddy's here." How we sat in the living room in the evenings, playing board games, laughing. Where did all that go? When did my family start looking through me like I was invisible? The bus stops and I get off at my stop. I walk down the familiar streets to my house, a small 5-story building on the outskirts of Lebanon. I climb the stairs. There was never an elevator here, step by step. On the 3rd floor, I stop to catch my breath. I used to run up and down these stairs without noticing my fatigue. Now every step is a test. I reach my apartment, open the door. It's quiet and dark inside. I turn on the light, take off my shoes, hang my jacket on the hook. It's the same as this morning. Nothing's changed. I go to the kitchen, put the kettle on. I take a jar of instant coffee out of the cupboard, pour a spoonful into a cup. Loria didn't approve of instant coffee. She brewed real coffee in a pot. I never learned how. While the kettle boils, I go out into the living room and turn on the TV, just for background, so it wouldn't be so quiet. I go back to the kitchen, brew some coffee, add sugar and milk. I sit down at the table and look out the window. There are other people living behind the glass. I can see their silhouettes in the windows across the street. Families gathering for dinner, couples embracing each other, children playing in their rooms. A whole world from which I am separated by an invisible wall. I sip my coffee and think about what Adelaide said today. Another 1,000 for the bathroom remodeling. I have that money. It's in a savings account. I've been saving it for a rainy day, but I think that day has come. What do I live for? To be an ATM machine for my kids? To sit in an empty apartment reminiscing about the past? To see people look at me once a week like I'm a burden? I finish my coffee, wash my cup, and put it back. Loria always said that an orderly house is an orderly mind. Maybe she was right. I go to the bathroom, brush my teeth, wash my face. I look at my reflection in the mirror. Gray hair, wrinkles, tired eyes. When did I get so old? When did I become invisible? The first snow fell in early December, covering Lebanon with a white blanket. I stare out the window, watching the snowflakes swirl in the light of the street lamps. Christmas is approaching, and with it the age-old problem of presents. On the kitchen table in front of me is a newspaper with circled sale ads and a shabby notebook. I make a list of gifts for the grandchildren, figuring out a budget. Millie wants an art set. It will cost about $60. Johnny wants a new video game console, but that's too expensive. We'll have to buy him a construction set or a radio-controlled car, and I'll probably give Thomas money. It's hard to please a teenager, and he doesn't seem happy about my gifts. The refrigerator shelves are half empty. Milk, bread, some cheese, and leftover soup from yesterday. I save on everything to save up for good presents for my grandchildren. The truck driver's pension is small, and most of it goes to the mortgage for the kids' house and their daily needs. But seeing the joy in Millie and Johnny's eyes when they open the presents is worth any hardship. The phone rings. I look at the screen and it's Keanu's number. It's weird. Usually kids only call when they need something. Hello? Hi, Dad. My son's voice sounds strained. How are you? I'm okay. Did something happen? No, I'm fine. It's just, I need a little help. Remember I told you about the mayor's portrait? I got paid a deposit, but they won't give me the rest until after New Year's, and I'm out of specialty paints. That's it. More money. How much do you need? $300. I'll pay you back right after the holidays, I promise. We both know he won't, but I'll do it anyway. I'll do it. I'll bring it by Sunday. How about tomorrow? I have to finish the portrait by the end of the week. Tomorrow? I'm looking out the window. It's snowing harder and harder. I don't know, it's bad weather. Please, Dad. It's very important. I sigh. Of course I'll go. I always go when they need me. I'll be at your place around 2 o'clock. I'll be at your place around 2 o'clock. Thanks, Dad. You're the best. He says a quick goodbye and hangs up. Didn't ask how I was feeling, what I was doing, if I needed anything. Just took what he wanted and disappeared. In the morning, I go to the bank and withdraw $300 from my savings account. The amount in the account melts away every month. Keen needs money for paint. Adelaide needs money for repairs or something else. Gloria and I used to save for a peaceful old age, but now that money is going to the kids. The bus crawls through the snowy streets. I press my forehead against the cold glass, looking at the city transformed by snow. Lebanon is beautiful in winter. Garlands on the trees of the main street, elegant store windows, Christmas decorations in the windows of houses. Gloria and I used to decorate the house for the holidays too. We hung garlands, put up a Christmas tree, baked gingerbread. Now, in my small apartment, I don't even have a tree to put up. I get off at the bus stop and walk slowly toward the children's house. The snow crunches under my feet. The frost stings my cheeks. I'd rather stay home, but Keanu needs that money. An unfamiliar, expensive car stands in front of the house, probably one of Adelaide's friends. I ring the doorbell, shuffling from foot to foot because the porch is slippery. Johnny opens the door and his face lights up with a smile. Grandpa, he throws himself on my neck. You made it. Of course I'm here, I hug my grandson, feeling the warmth of that simple gesture. Your dad asked me to bring something. Come in quickly, it's cold. There are a lot of shoes in the hallway. It looks like they have guests. There are voices and laughter coming from the living room. I take off my shoes, hang up my jacket, and go inside. Adelaide, Keanu, Edith, and 2 people I didn't know were in the living room. A distinguished man in his 50s in an expensive suit and an elegant woman about the same age. They stop talking when I arrive. Papa? Adelaide looks surprised and not too pleased. We weren't expecting you today. Keanu asked me to bring money for the paints, I explain, feeling awkward in my old sweater in front of these dressed-up people. Oh, yeah. Keanu rises from the couch. Thank you for coming. I'll just be a minute, he says to the others and walks over to me. Who is it? I ask in a whisper as we walk toward the kitchen. My boss and his wife. Adelaide, who has also risen from the couch, answers quietly. Bertram Nye, the director of our construction company. Oh, I see, I nod. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just brought the money like Keanu asked me to. Yes, thank you. Keanu glances nervously at the guests. Let's go to the kitchen. In the kitchen, Keanu quickly takes the envelope with the money from me. Thanks, Dad. You really helped me out a lot. You're welcome, I say. How are the grandkids doing? I haven't seen them for a long time. Washum. And they're fine. They're at a friend's house right now, Keanu said, clearly in a hurry to get back to his guests. Look, Dad, this isn't a good time. Sure, I nod, taking the hint. I'm just leaving. We go back into the hallway, but before I can put on my shoes, Johnny comes out of the living room holding a cell phone. Daddy, can I show Grandpa the invitation to our Christmas dinner? It's so cool. What invitation? I look at my grandson with interest. Well, Mom made electronic invitations for everyone for Christmas. Johnny holds out his cell phone to me. Look, on the screen is a beautiful card with shimmering snowflakes. You are invited to a family Christmas dinner on December 24th at 7 p.m. The Thursby family. It's very pretty, I smile. Your mom always knew how to do things like this. Adelaide snatches the phone out of her son's hands. Johnny, go to your room, please. But Mom, now! The boy throws me a guilty look and walks away. Adelaide turns to me, her face tense. I'm sorry, Papa, but we have to get back to our guests. Of course, I start to put on my shoes. Adelaide, I didn't get an invitation to Christmas dinner. She freezes, then sighs. We haven't sent out to everyone yet. Shman, I see. I nod, though it's already clear. What time should I arrive on the 24th? Adelaide and Keanu exchange glances. Look, Dad, Keanu begins. We were planning a little dinner, just for who? I look at them, already knowing the answer. For the inner circle, Adelaide crosses her arms over her chest. We'll have my boss and his wife, Edith's colleagues. And I'm not the inner circle? My voice trembles. Papa, don't start, please. Adelaide shakes her head. It's just that we want to do the party differently this time. It's important for my career. I look at them and suddenly realize I need to hear it straight. No overtures. Adelaide, tell me straight out. You don't want me to come to Christmas? Laughter erupts in the living room. Adelaide casts a glance that way and turns to me. All right, Daddy, you're not invited to Christmas. Her words are like a slap in the face. I blink, trying to comprehend what I'm hearing. Why? Because you're always criticizing everything, she says quietly but firmly. You don't like the way I raise Thomas, the way Keanu spends his money, the way Edith cooks. You're ruining the atmosphere, and this holiday is very important to me. I'm just trying to help, I try to explain. I can make my signature cranberry pie. Gloria always said, Oh, you're talking about Mom again? Adelaide interrupts. She died 5 years ago, Papa. We live in the present. Her words hurt deeper than she can imagine. It's like Gloria never existed. I just want to be with my family for Christmas, I say quietly. We'll get together at your place for New Year's, Keanu intervenes. Right, Adelaide? She shrugs her shoulders. We'll see. I might have plans. I see Keanu cast a reproachful look at his sister, but he doesn't argue. He never argues with her. I understand, I say, even though I don't really understand anything. Then I'll go. Papa, no offense. Adelaide sighs. It's just that this dinner is very important to my career. You know I've been waiting a year for a promotion, and if I make a good impression on Bertram, it all makes sense now. She's ashamed of me in front of her boss. She's ashamed of her father, the former truck driver. I'm not offended, I say, though my insides are clenching with pain. I get it. Your career is more important. Dad, don't twist it. Adelaide rolls her eyes. Just one night without you isn't the end of the world. I put on my jacket, check my pockets. Keys, wallet, everything's there. Of course it's not the end of the world, I nod. Say hello to your grandchildren. Maybe I could give you a ride. Honorum, Keanu offers. It's snowing outside. No need, I shake my head. I'm used to buses. I step out onto the porch and carefully descend the slippery steps. It's still snowing, large flakes falling on my shoulders, melting on my face, mixing with unsolicited tears. Without looking back, I walk to the bus stop. People are bustling around with Christmas shopping, holiday tunes are playing from the speakers on the poles, garlands are twinkling in the windows. Everyone is preparing for the holiday, for family gatherings, for the warm embrace of loved ones. And I'm not invited to Christmas. To my own family. The bus arrives in 20 minutes. I step inside, shaking the snow off my jacket, and sit by the window. It's almost empty. Just an old woman with bags and a young guy wearing headphones. I look out the window at the snow-covered city floating by and think about my daughter's words. You're ruining the atmosphere. You're always criticizing everything. Am I really like that? I just wanted to help, to give advice, to share my experiences. When did it start to be perceived as criticism? I remember teaching Keanu how to ride a bike, reading bedtime stories to Adelaide, going to the lake as a family in the summer. When did everything change? When did I become overweight? Maybe it started when we gave them the house, or when Loria died. She was always the link between us, smoothing out the rough edges, finding compromises. Without her, everything fell apart. The bus stops at my stop. I get off and slowly walk toward home. The snow has already covered my morning footprints. I walk up the stairs, feeling my heart grow heavier with each step. I open the door of my apartment. Silence descends on me as soon as I close the door. Not a sound except the ticking of the old clock on the wall, a gift from Loria for our 20th anniversary. I take off my jacket, take off my shoes, and go into the kitchen. I put the kettle on, take out a cup. On the refrigerator is a picture of my grandchildren taken last summer. They're smiling, holding ice cream. I took them to the park then, bought sweets, rode the merry-go-round. It was a good day, but there are fewer and fewer days like that. Now I only see my grandchildren on Sundays and not for long. And now I won't see them for Christmas either. The kettle's whistling. I make tea, add a spoonful of sugar, sit down at the table. There's a newspaper on the table with the sale ads circled. Gifts. I still have to buy presents for my grandchildren. But why? If I won't be here for Christmas, when should I give them? New Year's Eve? If Adelaide deigns to come? If they even think of me? For the first time in a long time, I feel not just sadness or loneliness, but real bitterness, resentment, anger. I gave them everything. My home, my money, my time, my love. And they threw me out of their lives like I was nothing. They didn't even invite me to Christmas. You're not invited to Christmas. It's like a broken record in my head. My daughter, my flesh and blood, said it to my face without a shadow of doubt or remorse. Because she's ashamed to show me to her boss. A simple working man who has spent his life turning the wheel so she could get an education, so she could have a home, so she wouldn't need anything. I finish my tea, wash my cup, wipe my hands. It's like something clicks in my head. No more. No more being a doormat that people wipe their feet on. No more giving the last of my life to people who don't appreciate it. No more pretending everything's okay. I go into the living room, sit in the chair, and turn on the TV. All the channels are Christmas-themed. Movies about family values, commercials for gifts, shows about how important it is to be with loved ones during the holidays. I turn off the TV. In the silence, my daughter's words sound even clearer. You're not invited to Christmas. Suddenly, I realize I'm crying. Tears roll down my cheeks, and I don't try to hold them back. Loria always said there's no shame in crying when it hurts. And I'm hurting like I've never been hurt in my life. I still sit in the chair as it gets dark outside the window. I don't turn on the lights, just sit in the dark, going through memories. I remember how proud I was when Adelaide got her accounting degree. How happy I was when Keanu sold his first painting, albeit for only $50. But it was progress. How I held my newborn grandchildren in my arms, promising myself to be the best grandfather ever. What did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? Why did my children grow up to be so ungrateful? The phone rings. Keanu's name is on the screen. I don't want to answer it, but my hand reaches for the receiver. Hello. Dad, it's me. Keanu's voice sounds guilty. Are you okay? Yeah, I answer shortly. Listen, about Christmas. Adelaide went a little overboard. Of course you can come. Really? There's a flicker of hope in my chest. What about her boss? Well, Keanu stammered, maybe you could come in early, talk to the grandkids, and then, before the guests arrive, hope fades as quickly as it came. Leave so I don't embarrass your sister with my presence? Dad, not like that. That's exactly right, I interrupt. No need, Keanu, I understand. Tell Adelaide I won't spoil her big night. Papa. Goodbye, son. I hang up and put the phone on the table. It's all so clear now. I'm a burden to them, an inconvenient old man who's only tolerated for his money. Not a family member, not a beloved father and grandfather, but an ATM with legs. I get up from the chair, go to the kitchen. I open the cabinet where I keep important papers. I take out a folder with the documents for the house and the mortgage agreement. The 25th day of each month is payment day. Another week until the next one. I flip through the pages of the contract, reading the fine print. In case of late payment for more than 30 days, the bank has the right to... I stop. I close the folder and put it back in the closet. I return to the living room and sit down in the chair again. You're not invited to Christmas. Those words will haunt me for a long time to come. But now in the darkness of my small apartment, I make a decision. No more being invisible. No more giving and getting nothing in return. No more letting them treat me like a worthless old man. It's time to show them that I still exist, that I'm not just an ATM machine, that I have feelings and pride and self-respect. I know what I'm going to do, and it will change everything. The snow was still falling when I got home. The apartment greeted me with a chilly silence. I'd forgotten to turn on the heat when I left that morning. My fingers shook as I took off my shoes, not from the cold, but from the anger and resentment bubbling inside. I took off my jacket and went straight to the bathroom, turned on the hot water, and put my stiffened hands under the stream. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man looking back at me, a pale face with reddened eyes, deep wrinkles, and tight lips. An old man, an unwanted, forgotten old man. You're not invited to Christmas. Those words, spoken by Adelaide with such indifference as if she were talking about the weather, echoed in my head. My daughter, my child, the one I held in my arms for the first few minutes of her life, the one I read bedtime stories to, the one I taught to ride a bike to, the one I paid for college to, the one I gave my home to. She cut me out of the family celebration because she's embarrassed to show her boss her trucker father. Wiping my hands, I walked to the kitchen and put the kettle on. The movements were mechanical. I need to warm up. I need something to drink. My mouth was dry as if I had crossed the desert. While the water boiled, I stood at the window, looking at the falling snow without seeing it. Adelaide's face was in front of me, saying those cruel words. The kettle clicked on, turning off. I made tea, added sugar, and sat down at the kitchen table. I sipped the hot liquid without tasting it. My head was spinning with fragments of phrases, memories, resentments. When I finished my tea, I set the cup aside and sat motionless, staring at one point. Then I got up, went into the living room, and sank into my chair. He didn't turn on the television. He didn't want to hear Christmas tunes or see happy families in commercials. On the coffee table was an old photo album in a worn leather binding. I reached for it, opened it at random. The yellowed snapshots held moments that would never come back. Here was Loria in the garden, laughing, holding a bunch of freshly cut flowers. Here's Adelaide, 6 years old, unwrapping a Christmas present with sparkling eyes. Here's Keanu, a teenager, proudly holding his first painting, an inept but sincere landscape of our backyard. Turning page after page, family picnics, birthdays, school graduations, children's weddings, smiles, hugs, love in every picture. What happened to that family? When did it all go wrong? I get to the last pages, where there are fewer photos. After Loria's death, I rarely shot anything. A few shots of my grandchildren in the park, a couple of photos from last year's Thanksgiving. In them, I'm standing off to the side, as if I'm not part of the family but an occasional guest. I close the album and set it aside. I rise from my chair, my knees ache from sitting in the cold at the bus stop for so long, and walk over to the bookshelf. There, behind a row of shabby books, is a small dark wood box. I take it out, return to my chair, and open it. Inside are documents: Loria's marriage certificate, the children's birth certificates, the deed to our house 20 years ago, and finally what I'm looking for, a mortgage agreement signed 10 years ago. I remember that day as clearly as if it were yesterday. Adelaide had just divorced her husband, left alone with little Thomas, and a huge loan she and her ex-husband had taken out to buy a house. He refused to pay his share, saying she had inherited the house, so let her pay it. Adelaide cried in our kitchen, saying that the bank threatened to take away the house, that she and Thomas will be on the street, and Keanu had Johnny, the second child, and he and Edith were living in a rented apartment, always short of money. And then Loria and I proposed a solution: to give our house to the children and move to a smaller apartment. The house was spacious, 3 bedrooms, a large living room, a garden, plenty of room for both families. Adelaide and Keanu together could easily handle the mortgage, and we would help. Adelaide hugged me, kissed my cheek, told me how much she loved us, promised that when we were old, she and her brother would take care of us, that our house would always be ours too, that we were one big family. Beautiful words. Then Loria got sick. The cancer came suddenly and relentlessly. All the money we had set aside for her old age went into treatment, but it was too late. She was dying before my eyes, and the children came rarely, always in a hurry, always busy with something. After the funeral, Adelaide hugged me and told me that they would take care of me now, that I would not be alone. Beautiful words again. And then the problems with the mortgage started. Keanu couldn't make his installment. Adelaide had unforeseen expenses. So, without Lori, I took over all the payments. Temporarily, they said. Just for a few months until they got back on their feet. 5 years passed. 5 years I'd given most of my pension to pay the mortgage on the house my children lived in. The house I was now being kicked out of. I opened the mortgage contract, looked at the terms and conditions. Automatic deduction on the 25th of every month. $400, almost half my pension. Money that could have gone toward medicine, toward good food, toward new clothes instead of those shabby sweaters Adelaide was ashamed of. Closed the contract, returned it to the box, put it on the table and stared at it for a long time as if it could provide answers to my questions. Why did my children become like this? Why did I let them treat me like this? What would Loria say if she saw what our family had become? I knew what she would say. Harlan, it's time to respect yourself. If you don't respect yourself, no one will. I glanced at the clock, 7 o'clock at night. The bank was already closed, but online banking was open 24 hours a day. I got up, walked to the desk, turned on the old laptop. Loria had insisted I learn how to use a computer and the internet. You can't get anywhere without it these days, she'd said, and she was right. The laptop booted up. I opened the browser, went to the bank's website, entered my login and password. A few clicks and I was on the page with automatic payments. $400, 25th day of each month. Payee is the mortgage department of First National Bank. My finger hovered over the Cancel Auto Pay button. I wondered, what would happen if I clicked it? Would the bank start foreclosure proceedings? Would the kids end up on the street? Will the grandchildren suffer? But then I remembered Adelaide's words. You're not invited to Christmas. And with determination, he pressed the button. The system asked for confirmation. Are you sure you want to cancel this auto pay? Hell yes, I'm sure. I hit confirm. Auto pay successfully canceled. 3 words on the screen, and something changed. Not just in my bank account, in me. It was as if the weight I'd been carrying for years had lifted. Like right now at 72, I was finally starting to respect myself. I turned off my laptop, returned to my chair. It was empty inside. But it wasn't the desperate emptiness that had been gnawing at me for the last few years. It was clean. Like I'd washed something dirty and sticky off of me. I don't know how long I sat like that, in complete silence, listening to my sensations. Then I got up, went into the bedroom, and pulled out my old piggy bank, the tin cookie jar where I used to put my change. I dumped the contents on the bed, counted them, $73.40. Not wealth, but a start. That money won't go toward gifts for my grandchildren, which I won't be able to give them for Christmas anyway. It won't go toward new paint colors for Keanu. It's not going to pay the mortgage on the house I was kicked out of. That money would be the first step to my new life. I woke up earlier than usual this morning. I felt strange, like I was 10 years younger. I did some exercises. Simple exercises that the doctor recommended for my age, but which I often neglected because of fatigue. Today I did the whole complex and didn't feel the usual back pain. I had oatmeal with berries for breakfast. I usually save on such excesses, but today I decided to treat myself. I turned on the radio. For the first time in a long time, Christmas tunes didn't make me sad. I got dressed and left the house. It had stopped snowing and the streets had been cleared. I headed for the bus stop, not the one that led to the children's house, but in the opposite direction, toward the center of town. The first stop was the bank. I withdrew $800 from my account, the amount I usually spend on the kids per month. $400 for the mortgage, $200 for Keanu's paints, $200 for Adelaide's unexpected expenses. Felt a strange pleasure holding that money in my hands and knowing I would spend it on myself. Then I went to the mall. I hadn't been here in a while. I usually ordered everything I needed from the little store near my house, where the prices were lower. But today, I wanted something more. In the men's clothing store, I chose a new suit, dark blue, classic, with a vest. The consultant, a young guy with a fashionable beard, helped me choose a size and a style that would make me look young and solid at the same time. I didn't say that at my age it's too late to be young. I just bought a suit, and two shirts to go with it, and a tie, and a new coat to replace the old jacket. When I came out of the store with the bags, I caught my reflection in the window and did not immediately recognize myself. I was a tall, gray-haired man with a straight back and a determined look. Not at all like the hunched old man I was used to seeing in the mirror. The next stop was the sports center. Loria always said swimming was the best exercise for people our age. I asked about the possibility of signing up for the pool. Of course, the girl at the front desk smiled. We have a special group for seniors, classes 3 times a week in the mornings. The trainer shows exercises, watches the technique, helps. How much does it cost? I asked, preparing to hear a sum that would make me give up the idea. $70 a month, she replied. But we have a 50% discount for seniors, so it's $35 for you. $35. Less than I'd spent on one trip to see the kids with presents. I immediately paid for a monthly membership and got a pass with my name on it. So Sayomon. Classes are Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 10 in the morning, the girl said. You can rent swimsuits and a towel, but it's better to have your own. Thank you, I will buy. I nodded. And what else is there in your center? Gym, yoga, dancing, she handed me a booklet. Here's the full schedule. And we also have a club for the elderly. They meet here on Thursday nights. They play board games, socialize, sometimes have dances. Dancing? I was surprised. At my age? Of course, she laughed. My grandmother goes, she's 78, and she says it's the best time of the week. I took the booklet, thanked her, and walked out, feeling strangely excited. Dancing. When was the last time I danced? At Keanu's wedding, I guess. 15 years ago. From the sports center, I headed to the sporting goods store, bought swim trunks, a towel, a pool cap, and rubber slippers. Then I went to the bookstore. Loria loved detectives, and I'd been rereading her books since her death. Now I bought myself 3 new novels and a biography of Abraham Lincoln, which I'd long been interested in. At the corner cafe, I ordered lunch, not a cheap sandwich, as usual, but a full steak with potatoes and salad, and a nice cup of coffee, and an apple pie for dessert. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, not thinking that I could have saved that money and given it to the kids. After lunch, I visited a barber shop. I usually cut my own hair, saving every dollar, but today I let a professional put my head in order. A young barber with tattoos on his hands worked on my hair while talking about the latest happenings in town. Did you know that our community center had started a computer literacy class for seniors? He asked, deftly wielding his scissors. My mother signed up. She's 65, and she loves it. She says she can now order her own groceries online and video chat with her grandchildren. I didn't know that, I replied, but it sounds interesting. They're free, the hairdresser continued. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2 to 4. The center on Oak Street, do you know it? Yeah, I was passing by, I nodded. I'll have to check it out, thanks. When he finished, I hardly recognized myself in the mirror. The stylish short haircut made me look younger, and the neatly trimmed beard I'd grown after Loria's death looked solid, not gaunt. It looks good on you, the barber smiled. Minus 10 years. I paid, leaving a generous tip, and went outside. The sky had cleared, and the winter sun was shining. I stood in the middle of the sidewalk with my shopping bags, my new coat, my new haircut, and suddenly I laughed. Just like that, from the fullness of my feelings. Passers-by looked back at me. A gray-haired man laughing alone on the street must have looked strange, but I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt alive. On the bus on the way home, I leafed through the sports center's brochure, studying the schedule of classes. Pool, yoga for seniors, even tango for beginners, and a club on Thursdays. Today was Tuesday, which meant I could go the day after tomorrow. At home, I laid out my shopping, hung my new suit in the closet, arranged my books on the shelf. Then I pulled out of my pocket the community center business card my hairdresser had given me and attached it to the refrigerator with a magnet. Computer literacy courses. Why not? I turned on my cell phone, which I had turned off in the morning, not wanting to hear calls from the kids. Immediately, notifications poured in. 3 missed ones from Keanu, 2 from Adelaide, 1 from Edith, and a few messages. I didn't listen to the voicemails, just read the text messages. "Dad, why aren't you answering?" "We're worried," Keanu wrote. "Dad, we need to talk about Christmas. Call me back," Adelaide demanded. I grinned and put the phone on the table. Let them worry. Let them think I was offended, and that's why I wasn't answering. The truth was much easier. I had better things to do today than listen to their excuses. I went to the kitchen and made myself a light dinner, an omelet with vegetables like Gloria liked to make. I sat down at the table and turned on the radio. There was news, then music. I ate slowly, savoring each bite, thinking about how my life would change now that I had decided to live for myself. Swimming pool on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Computer classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Senior club on Thursday nights. Suddenly, my life, which had seemed so empty and meaningless, was filled with plans. After dinner, I washed the dishes, wiped my hands, and walked to the living room. I sat in my chair and looked at the pictures on the mantelpiece. Gloria was smiling at me from the largest frame, a photo taken on our 30th anniversary. She would be pleased with my decision. I knew it. "I'm starting a new life, honey," I said out loud. "I'm sorry I didn't do it sooner." The phone rang again. This time I answered it. "Hello?" "Daddy, finally!" Adelaide's voice sounded annoyed. "Why haven't you answered all day?" "I've been busy," I answered calmly. "Busy? What can you be busy with all day?" There was so much genuine bewilderment in her voice that I chuckled again. My daughter really couldn't imagine that I could have a life of my own. "Her own business, Adelaide. What did you want?" "Keanu and I were talking about Christmas," she said in a businesslike tone. "And we thought you might come after all. It's just, not for the whole evening." "Thank you for your generous offer," I said sarcastically. "But I've already figured out how I'm going to spend Christmas." "You have?" She didn't believe me. "How?" "That's my business, Adelaide," I cut her off. "Was there something else?" "Yes, as a matter of fact," she paused. "Keanu and I were talking about fixing up the bathroom, remember? We're going to need your help." "Financially, you mean?" "Well, yes," she said as if it went without saying. $1,000 like we discussed." "No," I said firmly. "What?" She couldn't believe her ears. "No, Adelaide, I'm not giving you money to fix the bathroom." "But Papa, we talked." "You talked, I listened," I interrupted. "But I didn't agree. And I won't." "But why?" She was almost screaming. "You've always helped us." "That's right, always, and now I won't." "Is it because of Christmas? Are you offended? I told you you could come." "No, Adelaide," I sighed. "It's not about Christmas. It's about everything. I've decided it's time to start spending money on myself, not on grown-up children who should be on their own 2 feet by now." "What?" She was shocked. "You can't do this to us." "I can," I said calmly, "and I'm doing it." "Good night, Adelaide." I disconnected without waiting for her reply, and I turned off the phone completely. I didn't want to talk to any more of the kids today. I got up from the chair, walked around the apartment. Suddenly it seemed cozy, not dull as usual. I went to the window, looked at the snow-covered street, at the lights in the windows of the neighboring houses. Somewhere out there, people were living their lives, and now I was going to live mine too. At 72, I'm starting over. Sounds crazy, but it felt right. I went to bed early, but I couldn't sleep for a long time. My mind was spinning with plans for tomorrow, for the week, for the month ahead. I imagined how I would go to the swimming pool, how I would sign up for computer courses, how I would meet new people at the senior club. And none of those plans had room for ungrateful children and canceled mortgage payments. January brought hard frosts, but they couldn't cool my new enthusiasm. It's been a month since the day I canceled my automatic mortgage payment and decided to start living for myself. Everything had changed in that time. My appearance, my daily routine, my social circle, and even my gait. Now I walked with a straight back, confidently, not afraid to take up space. Tuesday morning began as usual lately, with exercise. Simple exercises that once seemed impossible. Now I performed with ease. The trainer at the pool, a thin, energetic woman named Jane, said I was in great shape for my age. Only a month ago, I could barely walk up the stairs, gasping for breath on each flight. After exercise, shower, breakfast, oatmeal with fruit and nuts, as Jane advised, and going to the computer course. These classes were a real eye-opener for me. It turns out there was a whole world beyond my old laptop and rudimentary online banking skills. I learned how to use email, social networks, video calling programs, even signed up for a senior dating site, for now just to see how it works. No particular plans. I put on a new dark green sweater I bought last week, warm pants, comfortable shoes. I looked at myself in the mirror, a familiar picture, but still pleasant. A gray-haired man with a neat haircut and beard, with lively eyes and a straight posture. Not the hunched old man who looked at me from the mirror a month ago. On my way to the course, I stopped by a small cafe near the community center. It became my favorite place. Quiet, cozy, with good coffee and fresh pastries. The owner, a full-figured woman named Martha, already knew me by name and always greeted me with a warm smile. "Good morning, Harlan," she exclaimed when she saw me. "The usual. Cappuccino and a blueberry muffin?" "Good morning, Martha," I nodded. "Yes, please." I sat down at my favorite table by the window and pulled out of my bag one of the books I'd bought a month ago, a biography of Lincoln. I was halfway through and found it surprisingly fascinating. I'd rarely read anything other than newspapers and technical magazines on automobiles before, but now I'd discovered the pleasure of good literature. Martha brought coffee and a muffin and set it on the table. "How are your classes going, Harlan?" she asked, lingering for a moment. "Have you gotten the hang of those computers yet?" "A little bit," I smiled. "Yesterday I made my first video call. It's amazing to see and hear a person who is thousands of kilometers away." "And who did you call?" she asked, wiping down a nearby table. "An old friend of mine, Denby," I answered. "We worked together as truckers, but after he retired, he moved to Florida. We hadn't seen each other in 5 years, just the occasional phone call. Then yesterday I saw his face, his house, his dog. It's amazing." "Technology works wonders," Martha nodded. "My daughter lives in Australia, and we have video calls every Sunday. Without it, I'd go crazy with homesickness." She was right. I used to live in my own little world where it was just me, my memories of Loria, my children who only wanted my money, and my grandchildren who I was barely allowed to see. Now my world had expanded. I knew the names of the clerks at the stores where I regularly shopped, said hello to my neighbors, and chatted with other seniors at the course and at the pool. And most amazingly, I made friends. Real friends who called just to see how I was doing, invited me for coffee, shared news. Arthur and Eleanor, the couple from the computer course. Jane, my swimming coach. Oswald, a former high school history teacher whom we met at a senior citizens club and discovered a shared passion for biographies of historical figures. And of course, Genevieve Birdwhistle, an elegant widow of 68 with silver hair gathered into a neat bundle and wonderfully lively brown eyes. We'd met at a dance at a senior citizens club. I never knew how to dance, but the instructor, a young girl named Tiffany, patiently explained the basic steps. When it came time to choose a partner to practice with, everyone was already paired up, and I stood there at a loss until Genevieve approached me herself. "It seems we are destined to dance together," she said with a slight smile. "I'm Genevieve." "Harlan," I answered, feeling strangely excited. "I must warn you, I'm a terrible dancer." "That's okay," she took my hand. "I lead well." And indeed, she was leading, though by the rules it should have been the other way around. But I didn't care. It was the first time in years I'd held a woman's hand, and it was nice. From then on, we saw each other every Thursday at the dance, and then we started seeing each other on other days. We drank coffee in the same cafe at Martha's, walked in the park, went to the local movie theater for afternoon screenings of classic films. Genevieve was intelligent, educated, and had a subtle sense of humor. She had worked as a librarian for 30 years, knew it seemed all the books in the world, and could recommend something interesting on any topic. Yesterday we were walking in the park, and she took me under her arm. Just like that, a natural gesture. And I suddenly realized that I didn't feel like a traitor to Loria's memory. On the contrary, it seemed to me that my wife would approve of my new friendship. After class, I met with Arthur and Eleanor, and we had lunch together in a small restaurant nearby. They told me about their grandchildren, who were visiting them for the weekend, and showed me pictures. I listened with a smile. but there was a slight sadness inside. I hadn't seen my grandchildren in a month. The kids called often in the first few weeks, first with reproaches, then with demands, then with pleas. Adelaide screamed that I had abandoned them. Keanu cried, saying that without my help they would lose the house. I replied calmly, "You are adults with good jobs. Solve your own problems on your own." Eventually they stopped calling every day, but the messages still came regularly. The grandchildren called too. Thomas just once, formally, clearly at his mother's insistence. Millie and Johnny more often, especially Johnny. He would talk about school, about his progress in math, about the new construction set his father had given him. I always enjoyed these calls, but felt bitter that I couldn't hug my grandson, couldn't see his smile. In the evening, already at home, I was sitting in an armchair with a book when the phone rang. Keanu's name popped up on the screen. I sighed but answered it. It was my son after all. "Hello." "Daddy." Keanu's voice sounded panicked. "Dad, we're being evicted." I put the book down, straightened up in my chair. "What's wrong, Keanu?" "The bank sent an eviction notice." He was almost shouting. "They're taking the house for non-payment. What do we do?" "Calm down and tell me the story," I said in a steady voice. "What's there to tell?" he sobbed. "A letter came from the bank. It says we're 3 months behind on our payments, and now they're starting eviction proceedings. We have 30 days to pay off the debt, or the house will be auctioned off." 3 months? I was surprised. I stopped paying a month ago. "Yes, but," he hesitated, "we hadn't paid for 2 months before that. We thought you wouldn't notice. Usually you'd just pay the full amount and the bank wouldn't send a notice. That's how it is. They didn't pay, counting on me to cover all the costs. They didn't even give me any notice." "What do you want me to do?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Dad, you have to help us." There was desperation in his voice. "This is your home too. You can't let your grandchildren end up on the street." "My home is my apartment," I said calmly. "I gave you that house 10 years ago. I've been paying for it ever since, even though I lived here. But now I won't pay anymore." "But why?" he shouted. "Why did you leave us?" "I didn't abandon anyone, Keanu," I replied. "I just stopped being your ATM. You are 42 years old. Your sister is 45. You should have learned to live within your means a long time ago." "We can't," he sobbed again. "I don't have a steady income. You know that. And Adelaide's paycheck goes to Thomas, to his college." "That's your problem, Keanu," I said firmly. "It's up to you." "Wait," he said in a different tone of voice. "Adelaide wants to talk to you." I heard a rustle, then my daughter's voice. "Daddy, it's me. Can you hear me?" "I can, Adelaide." "I put you on speakerphone," she said in a businesslike tone. "You have to understand the situation. If we lose the house, your grandchildren will suffer. Johnny will have to change schools. All his friends will stay here. Millie won't be able to go to her art studio. Is that what you want?" "Of course I don't," I answered. "But I don't understand why you, 2 adults with college degrees and jobs, can't provide a place for your children without the help of a pensioner. You know how hard it is now," she said in a persuasive tone that she must have used in business negotiations. "Prices are going up, wages are stagnant. Keanu doesn't have a steady income, and I'm the only one pulling Thomas in the mortgage." "What happened to the money from the sale of the mayor's portrait?" I asked. "Keanu said it was a well-paying job." "Well," my son intervened, "I haven't finished it yet. There were some difficulties with the composition. I had to redo it a few times." "I see," I nodded, though they couldn't see the gesture. "So you took money from me for materials, but you didn't do the work?" "As usual." "Dad, don't start." Adelaide's voice became harsh. "We're not talking about that right now. We need your help. $1,200 to pay off the debt, and then another $400 a month." "No," I said simply. "What do you mean, no?" She couldn't believe her ears. "You can't say no. We are your children." "I can," I replied. "And I say no. I have been your ATM for 30 years, but not a family member. Now I have left you free from my inconvenient presence. Enjoy it." "What are you talking about?" Adelaide raised her voice. "What inconvenient presence? You said yourself that I spoil the atmosphere, That I'm always criticizing everything, I reminded her. That you were ashamed to show me to your boss. That I wasn't invited to Christmas. It was just, she stammered. That's not what I meant. You got it all wrong. I got it right, Adelaide, I said calmly. For the first time in years, I see things clearly. You and your brother are using me. You don't visit me. You don't call to check on me. You don't invite me to family gatherings. You only think of me when you need money. That's not true, exclaimed Keanu. We love you. We do, son, I sighed, and we all know it. But things are different now. I'm not paying for you anymore. You can solve your own problems. Then you won't see any more grandchildren, Adelaide said coldly. That hurt. It hurt a lot. But I had been waiting for this blow. Do you use children as weapons, Adelaide? I asked quietly. It's low, even for you. I'm just stating a fact, she cut me off. If you don't help us keep the house, we'll move. Maybe to another city where life is cheaper. And then you won't be able to see your grandchildren. It's your choice, I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. But remember, the kids will grow up and realize that you used them as a bargaining chip in a blackmail scheme. They'll never forgive you for that. Don't you dare lecture me, she was almost shouting. You abandoned us in our hour of need. What kind of father are you? The father who provided for you for 30 years, I answered. The father who gave you his home. The father who paid your mortgage for 10 years. A father who now realized that his grown children must finally learn to stand on their own 2 feet. It's been a week since the conversation with the kids. All that week, my phone had been bursting with calls and messages. Adelaide threatened to sue. Keanu begged. Edith tried to appeal to my conscience. I said the same thing. You're adults. Solve your own problems. On Thursday night, returning from the dance, I found Adelaide at the door of my apartment. She was sitting on the steps, elegant as ever, but with reddened eyes. When she saw me, she rose. We need to talk, she said instead of greeting me. Come in. I opened the door, letting her go through. She came in, looking around. I realized she hadn't been to my place in a while, at least a year, and I noticed the surprise in her eyes. My apartment had changed. New curtains, a painting of a seascape on the wall, live plants on the windowsills. It no longer looks like the dreary home of a lonely old man. Your place is cozy, she said, clearly not expecting it. Thank you, I gestured her into the living room. Would you like some tea? No, thank you. She sat down on the couch and put her purse next to me. I won't be long. I just wanted to talk about the house situation again. I sat down in the chair opposite, waiting for her to continue. The bank gave us 30 days to pay off the debt, she began in a businesslike tone. That's $1,200. If we don't pay, they'll put the house up for auction. I understand, I nodded. We don't have that kind of money. She looked me straight in the eye. Keanu and I went over all the options. None of our friends can lend us that much. What about your boss? I asked. You wanted to impress him for Christmas, didn't you? She pressed her lips together. It was a mistake. I didn't get the promotion. Bertram said the company was cutting costs, and there wouldn't be any new management positions anytime soon. I sympathize, I said sincerely. But what can I do to help? She sighed. Dad, please, you're our last hope. If we lose the house, the children will have to change schools, friends, everything, I said. Adelaide, I interrupted her. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I won't pay for your house anymore. Not 1,200, not 1,200, not 400 a month. That train has left. But why? There was genuine incomprehension in her voice. What's changed? You've always helped us. I've changed, I replied simply. I realize that I deserve to be treated better than I've been treated by you. I deserve respect. I deserve to be part of a family, not just a source of money. We respect you, she exclaimed. You are our father. Then why didn't you invite me to Christmas? I asked bluntly. Why didn't you call for months just to check on me? Why didn't you let me spend time alone with my grandchildren? Why did every conversation we had end with you needing money? She opened her mouth to object, but closed it, unable to find an answer. See, I nodded. We both know the truth. You and Keanu have been using me all these years, and now that the source has dried up, you're in a panic. 3 days later, Keanu came in. He looked tired and confused. "Dad, we need to have a serious talk," he said, as I invited him into the apartment. "Adelaide is on the verge of a nervous breakdown. She could lose her job because of all this stress." "Sit down," I pointed to the sofa. "Tea? Coffee?" "Nothing, thanks." He sank down on the couch, rubbing his hands together nervously. "Look, I realize that we weren't, uh, not the most grateful kids, but we're talking about the welfare of our grandchildren. You don't want them to end up on the streets, do you?" "Of course I don't," I said calmly. "So I suggest you sell the house and buy something more affordable, or rent an apartment." "Sell the house?" He looked shocked. "But it's our house. We grew up there." "No, Keanu," I shook my head. "You grew up in the other house, the one your mother and I sold 20 years ago. And you got this house 10 years ago when you were adults. But still, it's a family nest. A family nest that the head of the family was kicked out of," I said dryly. "It's not exactly a family nest, don't you think?" He frowned. "We're sorry, Dad. We were wrong. We'll change, I promise. Just help us now, one last time." "I've heard that before, Keanu," I sighed. "The one last time is repeated every month. No, I'm not paying for your house anymore. Sell it and live within your means." A week later, both Adelaide and Keanu showed up with the kids. Apparently, they'd decided to take pity through their grandchildren. Johnny and Millie were happy to see me, hugging me, talking about school. Thomas, as usual, stayed on the phone. While the children explored the apartment, Adelaide got down to business. "Daddy, we've agreed to sell the house," she said, as if doing a huge favor. "But we need your help with the down payment on the new apartment." "How much do you want?" I asked, already knowing that I would refuse. 10,000, she said, as if she were asking for a dime. "We'll pay you back when we sell the house." "No," I shook my head. "I'm not giving you 10,000. Sell the house, pay off the mortgage, and use what's left as a down payment. Or rent until you save up." "But that would take years," she exclaimed. "Do you want your grandchildren to live in a rented apartment?" "Lots of kids live in rented apartments," I shrugged. "And they grow up to be normal people. The main thing, the love of parents, not square meters." You're just getting back at us." Her eyes narrowed. "For not inviting you to Christmas." "No, Adelaide," I shook my head. "I'm not taking revenge. I just stopped indulging your irresponsibility. You're adults. It's time you learned to live within your means." They left angrily, promising that I'd be sorry. But I didn't. For the first time in years, I felt I was doing the right thing. A month later, the bank started foreclosure proceedings. Adelaide called hysterically. Keanu begged for help. I was adamant. "Sell the house yourself before the bank puts it up for auction," I advised. "That way, at least you'd get something." Eventually, they listened. The house was sold to a young couple for barely enough to cover the balance of the mortgage. Adelaide and Keanu received a few $1,000s each, not even enough for a down payment on a new home. Adelaide rented a small apartment for herself and Thomas. Her news of her financial problems reached Bertram Nye, and he denied her not only a promotion, but also an annual bonus. She was furious, blaming me for all her troubles. But after a couple of months, when emotions subsided, found a new job in a rival firm, with better pay and prospects for growth. Keanu, with Edith and the children, also rented an apartment, much more modest than the previous house. But most surprisingly, Keanu finally found a permanent job. He got a job as an art teacher at the local school. At first grumbled that it takes time away from his real art, but then got involved. Turned out he was a good teacher, the kids loved him, and for the first time in his life, he was bringing home a steady income. And I went on with my new life. I went to the pool, computer classes, the senior citizens club, and I spent more and more time with Genevieve Birdwhistle. We met often, in cafes, in the park, at the movies. She was intelligent, educated, and had a subtle sense of humor. Gradually, our friendship grew into something more. One day, returning from a morning swim, I found Johnny in the driveway. He was sitting on a bench with his feet dangling and reading a book. "Johnny?" I wondered. What are you doing out here all alone, Grandpa?" He jumped up, rushing towards me. "I came to visit." "Alone?" I looked around. "Where's Dad or Mom?" "At home," he answered nonchalantly. "I came by myself, by bus." "The bus?" I was shocked. You're only 8 years old. Do your parents know you're here? No, he frowned. I left a note. I said I was going to a friend's house. Johnny, you can't do that. I shook my head. My parents will worry. We have to call them. But then they'd take me away. I could hear the fear in his voice. And I want to be with you. I sighed, sat down in front of him. Listen, buddy, I want you to be with me too. But your parents need to know where you are. Imagine how scared they'll be when they realize you're gone. He nodded sullenly. Okay, let's make the call. We went up to the apartment and I called Keen. As I expected, he was in a panic, calling all of Johnny's friends. When he heard that I had my son, he breathed a sigh of relief at first, but then he got angry. How could he do this? I'm coming to get him right now. You don't have to, I said. I'll bring him myself tonight. If you don't mind, of course. It's been a long time since I've seen him, and I'd like to spend the day with him. Keanu hesitated for a moment, then agreed. Johnny and I had a wonderful day. We walked in the park, went to the museum, ate ice cream. In the evening, as I was driving him home, he asked, Grandpa, who's Genevieve? I saw her picture on your desk. I smiled. That's my friend. A friend? He chuckled. Like in romantic movies? Sort of, I nodded, feeling myself blush. Cool, he exclaimed. I want to meet her. I will, I promised. Next time you come to visit. But not alone, okay? Okay, he nodded seriously. I'll tell Dad to bring me. He's not as busy as he used to be. He says he likes working at the school. He does? I was surprised. He used to dream of being a famous painter. He still paints, Johnny said, evenings and weekends. But he says he paints for fun now, not for money, and it's even better that way. I smiled. Maybe my tough decision had done them some good after all. A few days later, the doorbell rang. Millie stood on the doorstep with a bouquet of wildflowers. These are for you, Grandpa, she said, holding them out. And Johnny and I want to invite you to a picnic on Saturday. And your friend Genevieve, too. I was touched to the core. Thank you, darling. We'll definitely come. Do your parents know about this invitation? Of course they do. She nodded. Daddy said it's about time we got back together. And Edith's mom is going to bake your favorite apple pie. On Saturday, Genevieve and I went to the park where Keanu, Edith, and the children were waiting for us. Adelaide and Thomas were not there. Apparently, she was still holding a grudge, but the others were genuinely happy to see us. Keanu looked different, calmer, more confident. Edith seemed more relaxed, too. The children greeted Genevieve enthusiastically and immediately bombarded her with questions about books. Apparently, Johnny had already told his sister that my friend was a librarian. After the picnic, when the children had run off to play and Edith was dozing on the blanket, Keanu sat down next to me. You know, Dad, he said quietly, I wanted to thank you. For what? I wondered. No. For making us grow up, he looked at the kids playing. I've spent my whole life running away from responsibility, hiding behind my art. And now I feel like a real man. I provide for my family, I'm useful to society. I still paint, but for my soul, not for money. And you know, my paintings have gotten better. 2 galleries even like my new work. I put my hand on his shoulder, unable to speak with excitement. Adelaide will understand in time too, he continued. She's stubborn, but she's not stupid. And she sees how our lives have changed, how you have changed. I looked at Genevieve, who was engaged in a passionate conversation with Edith. She caught my eye and smiled. That special smile that was meant only for me. Yes, I have changed, I agreed. And I'm not going back to my old life. You're right, Keanu nodded. You deserve to be happy, Dad. We all do. That evening, as I walked Genevieve home, I took her hand. She looked at me in surprise. Harlan? Genevieve, I said, summoning up all my courage. Would you care to go on a real date with me? To a restaurant, with flowers and everything? She laughed, not mockingly, but joyfully. I thought you'd never ask. Of course I want to. I squeezed her hand, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. At 72, I was starting a new life. A life in which there was room for love, for respect, for dignity. A life in which I was no longer an ATM, but a human being. And even though things with Adelaide had yet to work out, Even though things weren't perfect, I knew I would never go back to my old existence. There was no going back, and it was for the best.